Three high school students, Aisha, Marco, and Jada, sat under the large oak tree in their schoolyard, enjoying the warm afternoon sun. They were waiting for their friend, Zoe, to join them. Zoe had been absent from school for a few days due to a flare-up of her sickle cell anemia, and they missed her lively presence. When Zoe arrived, she greeted her friends with a smile, despite looking a bit tired. "Hey, everyone! I've missed you all." "We missed you too, Zoe," said Aisha. "How are you feeling?" "I'm okay," Zoe replied. "I thought maybe I could teach you all something interesting today, something related to why I have sickle cell anemia. How about we talk about DNA mutations?" The friends nodded eagerly. They were always up for learning something new, especially when it came from Zoe, who had a knack for making complex topics easy to understand. Zoe started, "All right, so mutations are changes in the DNA sequence. There are different types of mutations, and they can affect the way proteins are made in our bodies. Let's start with point mutations." Marco raised an eyebrow. "Point mutations? What's that?" "Good question," said Zoe. "Point mutations involve changes in a single nucleotide in the DNA sequence. There are three types: substitutions, insertions, and deletions. A substitution is when one nucleotide is replaced by another. For example, in sickle cell anemia, a single nucleotide change results in the substitution of one amino acid in the hemoglobin protein, which causes the red blood cells to become sickle-shaped. Jada nodded thoughtfully. "So what about insertions and deletions?" "Insertions and deletions are called frame-shift mutations," Zoe explained. "These occur when a nucleotide is added or removed from the DNA sequence. Imagine you have a sentence, and you add or remove a letter. The whole sentence shifts and doesn't make sense anymore. This can cause the resulting protein to be completely different from what it's supposed to be." "Whoa, that sounds serious," Marco said. "Can you give us examples of what these mutations can do?" "Sure," Zoe replied. "Let's talk about the effects of these mutations. There are missense, nonsense, and silent mutations. A missense mutation changes one amino acid in the protein, which might alter its function. For example, sickle cell anemia is caused by a missense mutation." "That makes sense," Aisha said. "What about the other two?" "A nonsense mutation," Zoe continued, "introduces a premature stop codon, which means the protein is cut short. This usually results in a non-functional protein. An example of this is Duchenne muscular dystrophy. On the other hand, a silent mutation is when the change in the DNA sequence doesn't affect the protein at all. The protein is made correctly because of the redundancy in the genetic code." Marco looked impressed. "So, mutations can be really serious or not affect anything at all?" "Exactly," Zoe said. "And if these mutations affect protein synthesis and aren't fixed, they can lead to various disorders. Besides sickle cell anemia and Duchenne muscular dystrophy, other examples include cystic fibrosis, which is often caused by a deletion, and Tay-Sachs disease, which can result from an insertion." Jada, who was always curious about medical science, asked, "How do these mutations happen?" "Mutations can occur naturally during DNA replication or be caused by environmental factors like UV radiation, chemicals, and viruses," Zoe answered. "Our bodies have repair mechanisms to fix many mutations, but sometimes they miss them, and that's when problems can arise." Aisha, Marco, and Jada looked at Zoe with newfound respect and admiration. They had learned so much in such a short time. "Thanks for teaching us, Zoe," Aisha said. "You make it sound so interesting and easy to understand." Zoe smiled. "I'm glad you think so. Understanding these concepts helps us appreciate how intricate and amazing our bodies are. And it's always good to know more about what's happening inside us, right?" The friends nodded in agreement, grateful for the lesson and even more appreciative of Zoe's strength and knowledge. As they continued their conversation, Zoe decided to dive deeper into the topic by giving her friends a specific example. She pulled out her notebook and began drawing two DNA strands, one normal and one with the sickle cell mutation. Here's an example, she said, showing the drawings. This is a segment of the normal hemoglobin gene of 3 nucleotides, CTC, and this is the normal mRNA that's transcribed from it, GAG. This mRNA is translated into the amino acid sequence, where GAG codes for glutamic acid. Now, here's the sickle cell version of the same DNA nucleotide sequence, CAC. Notice, the thymine was substituted with adenine. The corresponding mRNA is GUG. Remember, it should be GAG, so this mRNA is translated into the amino acid sequence, where GUG codes for valine instead of glutamic acid. This single amino acid change causes the hemoglobin protein to form fibers, leading to the sickle-shaped red blood cells. Marco, intrigued, asked, what would happen with other mutations? Good question, Zoe said. Different mutations can cause different changes in the resulting protein. If a mutation introduces a premature stop codon, it can create a truncated and non-functional protein, like in Duchenne muscular dystrophy. A silent mutation, where the DNA change doesn't affect the protein at all, results in a correctly made protein despite the DNA alteration. Insertions or deletions cause a frame shift, changing the entire amino acid sequence downstream, leading to a completely different and likely non-functional protein. Disorders like Tay-Sachs disease and cystic fibrosis are examples of this. Aisha, Marco, and Jada looked at Zoe with newfound respect and admiration. They had learned so much in such a short time. Thanks for teaching us, Zoe, Aisha said. You make it sound so interesting and easy to understand. Zoe smiled. I'm glad you think so. Understanding these concepts helps us appreciate how intricate and amazing our bodies are. And it's always good to know more about what's happening inside us, right? The friends nodded in agreement, grateful for the lesson and even more appreciative of Zoe's strength and knowledge.